Welcome to this week's City Inside Out. On the docket today, the challenges at Seattle City Light. In this half hour, we talk with Heidi Wills, who chairs the council's Energy Committee. We also welcome a board member of the Municipal League, which has studied the utility and recently voted no confidence in its senior management. City Light is our focus today, but first, a brief look at the news. Dateline Olympia, the state Supreme Court ruled late yesterday that police departments, including Seattle's, can no longer automatically impound cars driven by those with suspended licenses. It's a practice that the city has followed for a few years now, one of the so-called Mark Sidran laws, and it's been quite controversial. Critics have argued that towing for having a suspended license is a heavy burden for a light offense. The state Supreme Court agreed, arguing that such mandatory impound rules are too harsh, especially when other alternatives exist. City Light seems to get no breaks. Amidst all its other troubles comes this news. Rates very likely won't come down as planned in 2004 after all. Utility bills rose sharply, nearly 60% during the Western energy crisis a few years back. The surcharge was necessary to pay off the huge debt that City Light assumed during that emergency. They're now behind in their cash flows. The problem, the utility's current surplus of electricity is not selling on the open market for what it had expected, since energy prices have made an amazing downward swing. In other City Light news, the council agreed to hold public hearings evaluating utility chief Gary Zarker. The recent independent reviews have been critical of his performance, especially during the Western energy crisis. Mayor Nichols says he supports hearings about Zarker, but has made it very clear that he is foursquare behind his utility chief. Blame out-of-state energy companies, he argues, not Zarker, for City Light's financial woes.
Everyone got hit hard by the greatest corporate swindle in the history of the United States, which was the California energy crisis. There was no crisis, there was no shortage, it was a corporate swindle. And companies went out of business. Portland General Electric declared bankruptcy. Pacific Gas and Electric in San Francisco, the largest utility in California state, had to declare bankruptcy. The state of California had to subsidize its electric utilities by $43 billion. So City Light was not unique, and in fact, City Light, as I see it, did a better job than most utilities.
Council members are now grappling with a citizen initiative to restore creeks throughout the city. Over 20,000 people signed the measure. It comes at quite a price, however, upwards of $20 billion. That's more than a few new viaducts. The Save the Creeks initiative mandates that Seattle spend money to restore streams throughout the city. That would include daylighting many waterways, which are now partly underground because of development. Given that there were enough signatures, council members have to act. They can either send it to the ballot next fall or adopt it on their own. At a recent hearing, Creek supporters criticized the council for not taking the initiative more seriously. As always, our cameras were there.
Please do your job. You were elected and you are now paid to listen to your constituents and then make decisions like this. And so you don't need others to make them for you. In these tight budget times, we were very surprised to see a letter from this council asking the Muni League to host a public process and offer to pay the Muni League to host that public process.
That woman went on to say that she wants lawmakers, not some outside group, to take the lead on this measure. The council this week broke one of its own rules. Earlier this year, council members adopted a resolution about ball field lighting, including how high such lights can be. It was the result of input from amateur athletes who want more field time and neighborhoods who want less lighting impacts. But the resolution was enforced only a few months before the council this week made an exception to it by allowing extra high lights at the Genesee Playfield in southeast Seattle. Why break their own rule? Councilmember Richard McIver wondered that same thing.
I'm just sort of curious as to didn't we send some information, to Parks saying what we thought would be a good direction? Are we now changing that, or are we just
I offered up an
accommodating?
amendment, Councilmember McIver. I agree with you. We did. We set policy, I thought, in the resolution regarding field lighting and shut-off hours for new fields. The committee looked at that issue, heard from staff, and decided that it did not wish to place, with the exception of me, any condition on the permit.
In other news, the University of Washington now has the city go-ahead to get bigger, a lot bigger. The council this week will approve a master plan for the UW, allowing it to develop nearly 3 million square feet of office and class space over the next decade. School leaders say they need it to accommodate over 9,000 new students. Among other things, the council plan removes legal limits on the UW's ability to buy land outside its campus boundaries. That makes some nearby residents unhappy, fearing the UW will overwhelm the area. The council did reject the school's plan to expand its Montlake area golf range. A big makeover in the South End was just put on hold. The Rainier Vista housing project was to be demolished to make way for a new mixed-income development. However, housing activists convinced a judge to temporarily stop the bulldozing, pending resolution of a lawsuit they are filing. The Vista complex has provided housing for poor individuals and families for decades. The new development will include many low-income homes, but will also add hundreds of market-rate housing units to mix things up. Housing advocates say the project displaces too many poor people, which is the subject of their suit. A court is expected to rule early next year. Until then, the bulldozer is idle. And now, a quick roundup of happenings in the city's neighborhood. Here's some happy news. The girls' basketball team at Ingram High School got certificates of appreciation from the Seattle Fire Department recently. They are credited with saving the lives of many senior citizens during a November blaze. The team was playing basketball when they noticed flames in a 4-story housing complex next door. They ran over and knocked on the doors, making sure residents, mostly seniors, got out safely. No one was hurt. Secondly, plans to open a bar in North Queen Anne are drawing some objections. Nearby neighbors say it will create a parking problem and encourage rowdy behavior. They also say an alcohol establishment is incompatible in an area so close to Seattle Pacific University. SPU is a free Methodist school that requires all students to sign a pledge not to drink or smoke. Expect to laugh harder when visiting downtown Seattle. The Improv Comedy Club is set to take over the vacant space that was once Planet Hollywood on 6th Avenue. The new venue will seat 400. And now to our regular City Inside Out calendar. Here are some items you may want to know about. Once again, we remind you that all Seattle public libraries will be closed for 1 week from December 17th through the 25th. That shutdown is a budget-cutting measure. The city will present its first design alternatives for South Lake Union Park this coming Wednesday, the 18th. Interested parties are encouraged to attend. And a couple of fun holiday events to suggest. Holiday hay rides at Seward Park still have some openings. And finally, Sing Along to the Sound of Music movie. It's great fun. I've even gone in the past. It happens at the Fifth Avenue Theater during the weekend of December 27th through the 29th. For more information about any of these events, you can check our website at seattlechannel.org. And finally, the nearly homeless Kalakala has found a new place to tie up. The ferry's Lake Union moorage rights come to an end in December, but just in time, the Kalakala Foundation has secured 6 months of docking at Sandpoint Magnuson Park. The group is hoping to raise nearly $750,000 to restore the ferry and put it on permanent display somewhere in the area. A little history. The Kalakala was the world's first streamlined ferry. Its maiden voyage was in 1935 from Coleman Dock, and it was in service until 1967. The name means flying bird in the local Chinook Indian language. Stay with us. Just ahead, a close look at City Light. Councilmember Heidi Wills joins us, and later a member of the Municipal League of King County, which just voted no confidence in the utilities management. Find out what you think when City Inside Out continues in a moment. Joining me now is Heidi Wills. She is the chair of the City Council's Energy Committee. Welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me, Sierra.
There have been a couple of different audits. They all have recommended something like an oversight board for City Light in response to all the problems. What's that going to do? How's that going to help?
We can only benefit by having additional utility expertise, having another set of eyes on utility issues, advising the mayor, advising the council, and advising the utility. I am working with the mayor right now on appointing a citizens task force of utility experts with consumer affairs interests, with financial backgrounds, with public power backgrounds, risk management backgrounds. 6 people to give additional advice and oversight over city light
In
issues.
addition to this advisory board.
That would be the advisory
That's
board.
part of the, okay, that's what you mean by the advisory board. Let me ask you about the past problems. I mean, the perfect storm, which was the Western energy crisis combined with the hydroelectric shortage of a couple years ago, which sent rates skyrocketing and you had to take out a whole bunch of debt and all the rest. As you look through these reports, they talk about key decisions that happened in the 90s that led to that perfect storm. One of which was selling a plant in Centralia. The city gets its source of power from different places. You sold a Centralia plant, which was producing a lot of power, and you didn't, and you had to buy, instead of having that sure source, you had to buy in the open market, and that kept you vulnerable. In retrospect, was selling the Centralia plant a bad idea?
I think that if we had known then what we know now, I don't know that the sale of the Centralia plant was the issue. 8 different utilities owned that plant. It was very environmentally degrading. There was a huge amount of money that needed to be invested in the plant to keep it up to EPA standards, and it was very hard to manage. But I think that the problem was that the utility and the city did not find a source of power to stem from the loss of that power from the coal plant. That left us exposed to the market. And the fact that California was beginning the process of deregulation at that time, you'd think it'd raise some question marks in the late 90s that people were expecting power prices would then come down as a result of deregulation, and in fact, just the opposite happened. And we're now finding that there was market manipulation in California. The city of Seattle has filed for $278 million in refunds from companies like Williams and Enron. And, you know, Williams just settled for $15 million with our state attorney general.
Let me get into the claims you have against the energy companies. But it is true that by selling that plant, not having an immediate source of replacement energy, you had to force yourself to go out in the open market.
That's
and that
right.
exposed you.
That's right.
Why didn't City Light have a plan to deal with sort of open market price rises? It seems like there wasn't a clear plan about when to stop buying on the open market if prices got too high, all the rest. Was there any policies about how much you were willing to pay on the open market as prices skyrocketed?
You know, and it wasn't just the sale of the Centralia coal plant that left us exposed to the market. There was a conscious decision made in the 90s to take less of our entitlement from the Bonneville Power Administration. That also left us exposed to the market. And at that time, market prices were lower than BPA's prices. But again, as you pointed out, there weren't policies and procedures in place. We didn't have a robust risk management manual. We hadn't set loss limits. Those clearly need to be established, and that's part of the work program that my colleagues and I on the council have delivered to Mayor Nichols and Superintendent Zucker. We have some very clear expectations. We want to see some improvements made in very short order, update the risk management manual. We need to reorganize the strategic planning function at the utility. We need to have more power management, and we need to have more utility expertise at the senior management level of City
Among
Light.
the other things, the audits talk about just that: more management expertise, utility management expertise at the senior level. The communication hasn't been great between the mayor and the council and the superintendent of City Light. The City Light's been a little bit defensive. There have been no effective risk management strategies. Some other, pretty harsh indictments of City Light. Why, with all that, does someone like you say, but we still need to keep Gary Zucker, the superintendent?
Oh, I haven't said that. In fact, I think that what we need to do now that we've gone through the energy crisis, and we're 4 years overdue to reconfirm the superintendent for City Light. He was appointed in 1994, and it's the responsibility of the council to go through a very public reconfirmation process every 4 years.
Why didn't that happen?
It wasn't practical to do that during the energy crisis, where we were just looking for enough electricity to power our homes and businesses in a very severe situation. Now that we're taking a comprehensive look at Seattle City Light, its short-term reforms that need to be made and its long-term future, it's completely appropriate and important for us to reevaluate the performance of the superintendent and to ensure that we have the right leadership in place that's going to take us to the next level of assuring that we remain the most competitively priced utility in the country with very high bond ratings in a very environmentally responsible way.
So you're still agnostic, so to speak, about Gary Zarker and whether he's the right guy for the future?
I think that part of the evaluation needs to be how the superintendent responds to the council's clear areas of reform in the next 3 months. We've spelled out we want to see risk management addressed, strategic planning addressed, additional technical expertise in the senior management level of City Light. We want key performance measures that we will be tracking on a quarterly basis at the city. We want to see improvements in their financial performance of paying off our debt. And we want to evaluate the superintendent on how he's responded to our Clear Work program over the next 3 months.
You're watching like a hawk.
That's right.
Until March, when you're having those confirmation hearings?
Early March, I'll begin the process of the reconfirmation, and I'd like the public to be as engaged in that process as possible. We need to hear from all stakeholders.
I promised I'd get back to the energy lawsuit. You are suing, the city's suing for, I believe, about $280 million that you want to recover from those energy companies.
Yes.
Most of them are bankrupt. How do you ever expect to get money back from them?
Well,
even if you are successful.
Enron wasn't the only one. And the administrative law judge has delayed the final recommendation, but that's forthcoming early next year. We'll find out what FERC does. But even if it doesn't go as we believe it should, because even FERC itself said that market prices were not fair and were not just, then we will take this to the federal courts if we have to.
And you will get money back from energy companies.
That's right. I mean, even Williams Energy Company has settled with the state attorney general's office, and not only will we see $15 million from that settlement, most importantly was they will be opening up their private records to us. So just like what happened with tobacco, we're hoping for a domino effect with the energy industry.
Let me ask you about, right now the city is in a situation where instead of being a buyer of electricity, like it was, quote unquote, the perfect storm, you're a seller.
Right.
You aggressively went and bought power after that storm to never, I guess, be in that position again.
Right.
Is that the new policy of the city? Never have to buy in the open market again?
Yes. We want to ensure that we never see a repeat of 2000 and 2001 again, and that we have the right policies and procedures in place so that we don't have to raise rates 58%. That our businesses and our residents can just not absorb that kind of increase. So instead of relying on the market in drought situations for that power that hasn't been coming in, because we had been planning for an average water year, we're now planning for severe water conditions. So we have surplus power, but that comes with the risk of not knowing what market prices will be when it comes for sale. And that's why making a more robust risk management division at City Light is a top
and
priority.
This has, in fact, come back to bite you, because now that you're a seller of power, you're actually taking a loss right now. I mean, the city bought power at about $50 a kilowatt hour, whatever it is, and the current market, believe it or not, is about $25 or something like that. I mean, you're taking a loss.
Yes,
correct,
so far we have $100 million in revenues this year, but this time last year we projected it'd be $120 million. So we're much shorter than we thought we would be, but much higher than we've ever been able to sell.
I mean, that's
before.
the downside of being a seller.
That's right. There's risk associated with being a seller. Not the same kind of risk as being a buyer in drought conditions on a market that's very uncertain. So we'd prefer the risk of being the seller than being the buyer.
Final question. Perfect storm, therefore, can't happen again?
No. I mean, we will never again be relying on the market to meet just the basic utility, needs of our city for electricity. That will never happen again. Even in the drought conditions that we experienced in 2000 and 2001, we will have all the energy we need for residents and businesses in Seattle.
Heidi Wills, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me, Sierra.
Stay with us. After a short pause, we welcome Bruce Carter of the Municipal League of King County. They recently voted no confidence in City Light management. Stay with us. Bruce Carter now joins me. He is a member of the Municipal League of King County. He chaired that group's subcommittee reviewing City Light's finances. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
You have said, and your group has said, you have no confidence in the senior management at City Light. Why not?
Well, we started off looking at this issue when the rates were going up, and we said, why are Seattle's rates going up? And we got into it, and people started raising issues about risk management and about planning. And we looked around and we thought, Seattle's rates are going up more than Tacoma's, which is just a smaller public utility to the south. Why is this? And we tried to evaluate it, and we ended up asking questions. And we said, City, you should propose these types of questions and have a consultant go out and tell you how well your utility is doing. Well, we were pleased that the City Council did appropriate the money to do that, and they hired a very capable consulting firm, and they came back with a report card, and it was pretty negative about Seattle City Light. And thus, we're encouraging the City Council and the mayor to really examine the management and decide what to do about it.
And indeed, we've just heard from Heidi Wills, they plan to do that. They plan to have reconfirmation hearings in March, which I assume your group supports.
Yes, well, we'd like to have them in March, or even sooner would be better. Because,
you want them earlier, but...
Well, we think that having a cloud over the situation is not good for the ratepayers, and the sooner that we can get a decision on this, the better.
You are right that the report, and I don't think anyone would dispute you, that was pretty harsh. It had some critical things to say, certainly about management, about the culture, and even about the governance and the relationship with the City Council, all the rest. And yet, isn't it true that many utilities faced the same kind of problems, suffered the same kind of consequences that this public utility did during that perfect storm?
Well, it appears that we were less prepared. And the auditors indicated that we should have had a risk management plan, being prepared for the storm. It's like having a life jacket before you go out in a storm. And when you look back, you find that the City Council told them, we need to have a risk management plan. We're in a commodities market. Those are volatile. They're uncertain. They specifically said in early 2000, give us a risk management plan by the end of the second quarter. For reasons that are unknown, the Seattle City Light did not do that. And they went right into the storm without a plan. The consultant came along and said, this is what you should have in a risk management plan.
We talked to Heidi Wills about the decision to sell Centralia, which is not the only sort of decision that affected this, but it's one of the big ones that was pre-storm. They sold that Centralia power. It was kind of dirty power. That's why they wanted to get out of it. They did not have a replacement, and so they had to buy in the open market. That was part of the issue that got them into the perfect storm.
Absolutely.
Heidi Wills will say it wasn't obvious back then, and hindsight is perfect, of course. It wasn't obvious back then that you were going to have a Western energy crisis and perhaps manipulation of the market, if that's what it turns out to be. Prices were pretty good in the wholesale market. I think even better than they were producing at Centralia. It's in retrospect, a bad mistake, but weren't there good people making reasonable decisions about selling Centralia?
Well, I think that Ms. Wells is really incorrect about that. And at the time Centralia was sold, there were a lot of people, including Mr. Zarker, who said they were running out of power. And yet, we would question City Light, because when they doubled their exposure to the market, City Light should have come to the council and said, how do you want to deal with this risk? Do you want to buy long-term contracts? Do you want to be in the short market? How should we do this? But City Light didn't come to the council. They should have, as a matter of policy, and that's an area where they should be faulted in management. They had a policy question, very important to the ratepayers. They didn't submit it to the council.
Is it your understanding that it was the instinct and perhaps the clear policy of City Light that selling Centralia was not a good idea, but that the council went ahead and did it anyway?
I don't know. I haven't evaluated that. But we know that in the aftermath of Centralia, they should have had a plan as to where they were going to get their power.
Yeah.
And they didn't. And they didn't submit that to the council.
Is this what you get, though, when you have a publicly owned utility? I mean, you get some bureaucracy, you get some inefficiencies. I mean, it's not a private bottom line for utility.
Well,
and and don't we get as good as we expect when we elect these people as the city council, and this is what we get?
Well, I don't think that any ratepayers expect to be paying this kind of a rate as compared to the other utilities. And I think we expect that when we have a superintendent, it's going to be a person with a vision as to how the utility should best be operated. I would expect that you'd have a superintendent who would come up with a risk management plan when the city council said they did. And in the aftermath, you would hope there'd be some self-analysis. One of the principal points of the consultant was that there's a dysfunctional culture at City Light where they don't do self-analysis, they're resistant to change, and they tend to attack people who criticize them. And I think there's been a situation where we have a substitution of public relations for self-analysis, and that's really a tremendous flaw that we have in current management there.
The mayor, when we interviewed him about this subject the other night, said that no one could have been prepared for market manipulation of the magnitude that we saw a couple years ago. I mean, you had huge multi-billion-dollar energy companies going bankrupt in California, many others on the brink of bankruptcy. I mean, this was larger than just City Light and a couple managers. I mean, how could anyone have been prepared for that kind of fiasco?
Well, the predators did not prevent them from preparing a risk management plan. The FERC did not prevent them.
The federal government.
Yeah, the federal government, Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. And they keep blaming these other people, but yet you look back at the beginning of 2000, they had a clear direction from the council, and they didn't do it. The California utilities are in a very, very different place because the legislature—
They're bankrupt.
Well, yeah, but at that time, the legislature had really taken away their ability to buy along, which Seattle had. And so
that puts them in a different situation.
Oh, very, very different situation. I think in looking at the storm, we need to look at our neighboring utilities who were involved in generating power.
Snohomish, Tacoma.
Well, Snohomish doesn't have generation, so they're different. But Tacoma and Puget both have generation.
And you argue they're doing better. Puget, worse bonds, but better prices.
Better prices. I mean, when you get your bill, you look at the price.
A couple more minutes here. Some people have said Gary Zarker and senior management at City Light is responsible, and some people will say, no, the ultimate buck stops at the city council, and the mayor. Let's say the elected folks. They should be overseeing this. They were the ones that didn't step in. They didn't have enough utility experience, all the rest. Who do you put the blame on? Is it the council's fault, or is it the senior manager's fault?
Well, the consultants say that the lion's share of the responsibility goes with the senior management at Seattle City Light. But we can look back and say, well, indeed, the mayor and the city council should have been more attentive. Why didn't they have them up there, saying, where is that report? Why don't we have this that we've required? But yet the responsibility for coming forward with the big policy issues is with senior management.
And you say no confidence in senior management, but you're not yet willing to say resign to Gary Zarker, and you got 10 seconds to respond.
Well, we think that the ball is in the proper courts with the mayor and with the city council and with Mr. Zarker, and we hope they're all trying to do what is best for the utility.
And you'll be around during those hearings.
We will participate.
Bruce Carter from the Municipal League, thanks so much.
Thank you.
And thank you all for joining us. Join us next week for another edition of City Inside Out. Until then, on behalf of our talented studio crew here at the program, I'm C.R. Douglas. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.
You're watching the Seattle Channel, connecting with life in the city.